The day of my accident began like any other. I was driving my old, beat-up car along a familiar road. The morning sunlight streaming through the trees. The air was crisp, and the world felt quiet, almost serene. I had no inkling that my life was about to change forever. One moment, I was adjusting the rearview mirror. The next, the car swerved uncontrollably, tumbling down a sloping embankment. In the chaos, I felt something unusual, almost surreal. It was as if my head was being cradled gently, even as the world spun around me. Later, I would recall this sensation and wonder if it was my father, who had passed away years before, shielding me in that moment of turmoil. Time seemed to stretch, and a deep calm washed over me. Then everything went dark. When I awoke, or rather, when I became aware, I found myself floating. It wasn't like a dream, it was more vivid, more real. I could see everything around me with perfect clarity. The tops of trees, the grass below, even the damaged car lying upside down on the road, it all came into view. My physical body was still trapped inside, but I was no longer tethered to it. The first thing I noticed was how sharp and expansive my vision had become. It was as if I could see not just with my eyes but with my entire being. The world appeared more vibrant, more alive than I had ever perceived it before. The cool air brushed against me, and the warmth of the sun was palpable. In this state, everything felt amplified yet harmonious. I tried to move, to direct myself, but instead of descending or stopping, I felt a gentle pull upward. It was as if some unseen force was guiding me towards something higher. At that moment, I realized this was not a dream. Something extraordinary was happening, something beyond the scope of my understanding. As I looked skyward, I saw what I can only describe as a vortex. It was a gap in the sky, filled with clouds and swirling, plasma-like light. Within this opening, stars glimmered, but not like the stars we see at night. These were more luminous, more concentrated, as if they were the core of a galaxy spinning around a radiant central light. The beauty of it was overwhelming. I felt a pull, not just upward but inward, as if the light was calling to me on a soul-deep level. It wasn't just the visual spectacle that captivated me, it was the profound sense of connection and belonging that emanated from it. I instinctively knew this was a gateway, a passage to something far greater than anything I had ever known. At that moment, a realization struck me with incredible force. I was in the presence of something divine. Overwhelmed, I fell into a posture of submission, bowing as deeply as I could. "Oh my God, you are," I whispered, not as a question but as a statement of absolute certainty. It was as though every fiber of my being resonated with the truth of that acknowledgement. This realization brought with it a wave of regret, not for dying, but for how I had lived. In that instant, I saw my life from a new perspective, one that was unfiltered by ego or self-deception. I saw every choice, every action, every moment of selfishness or apathy. It was not a judgment in the punitive sense but a revelation of truth. And that truth weighed heavily on me. The pain of this awareness was not physical but emotional and spiritual. It was as if my soul had been laid bare, exposed to the full spectrum of its actions and their consequences. I felt the sorrow I had caused others magnified many times over. Each act of self-centeredness, each moment of indifference, reverberated through me, leaving an indelible mark. In this vulnerable state, I became aware of a presence beside me. It was not a person in the traditional sense but a being of pure light. Its form was radiant, yet it did not blind or overwhelm me. Instead, it exuded a warmth and compassion so profound that I felt both humbled and comforted. I cannot say for certain who or what this being was, but every part of me recognized it as a manifestation of divine love. The being spoke, not with words but with an understanding that bypassed language altogether. "I'll take it," it said, referring to the weight of regret and sorrow I carried. In an instant, that burden was lifted. "You are forgiven," it added, and with those words, a wave of peace unlike anything I had ever known washed over me. For the first time, I felt truly free. This moment of forgiveness was not just an act of grace, it was a revelation about the nature of existence itself. The being explained that to be human is to carry the imperfections of flesh, biology, psychology, ego, and all that comes with it. Being flesh means you will sin. It said, not as an indictment but as a statement of fact. And yet, this condition of imperfection was not something to be condemned but something to be understood with compassion. As I absorbed this, I began to sense more about the being itself. It was not merely an individual entity but part of a greater whole. A custodian of the universe who watched over creation with infinite care. It was both personal and universal, embodying a love that was beyond comprehension yet deeply intimate. With this newfound clarity, my curiosity awakened. Questions bubbled to the surface. Questions about the nature of existence. About other worlds. About life beyond Earth. Are there aliens? UFOs? Parallel universes? I asked, my mind racing with wonder. The being's response was not verbal but a cascade of understanding. I was shown glimpses of the cosmos, of interconnected realities beyond anything I could have imagined. It was as if the entire universe had opened itself to me, revealing its infinite complexity and beauty. In that moment, I understood that the universe was not separate from us but a reflection of the divine. A living expression of love and creativity. Every star, every atom, every being was connected, part of an intricate and harmonious whole. It was both humbling and exhilarating to glimpse this truth. To see myself not as an isolated individual but as a thread in the vast tapestry of creation. Yet, even as I reveled in this understanding, I became aware of my body far below. Still trapped in the wreckage of the car. I realized that my journey was not over. That I had a choice to make. To stay in this realm of light and love or to return to the physical world. The being of light did not compel me one way or the other but simply waited. Its presence a reminder of the love and purpose that would guide me regardless of my decision. I felt a pull, both toward the light and toward the life I had left behind. With a deep breath, I made my choice. I apologized for the interruption and expressed my gratitude for the revelations I had received. Then, with the being's blessing, I began my journey back to the physical world, carrying with me the lessons of this extraordinary encounter. Hovering above the wreckage, I marveled at the vivid clarity of the world around me. Every detail seemed amplified, the shimmer of sunlight on the broken shards of glass, the intricate patterns of leaves swaying gently in the wind, the hum of life that continued undeterred. My body lay motionless below, yet I felt no fear or sadness as I observed it. Instead, a sense of detachment and acceptance enveloped me. It was as though I understood, at a fundamental level, that I was more than the physical form that lay battered and still. As I turned my attention upward, I noticed something extraordinary. A light, brilliant and otherworldly, began to fill the sky above me. It wasn't the harsh, blinding light one might expect, but a warm, inviting glow that seemed alive with intention and purpose. This light emanated from what appeared to be a vortex, a swirling portal of clouds, plasma-like energy, and radiant colors that defied earthly description. Within the vortex, I could see countless points of light, moving in a dance of harmony and grace, like stars orbiting a luminous core. Drawn to this vortex, I felt myself being gently pulled upward, as though the light itself was calling to me. It wasn't a physical pull but an irresistible magnetic force that resonated deep within my soul. I knew instinctively that this was not merely a phenomenon to observe but an invitation to something far greater. With each moment, the pull grew stronger, and I surrendered to it willingly, allowing myself to be guided toward this source of unimaginable beauty and love. As I ascended, I became aware of a profound presence surrounding me. A force that radiated infinite compassion and understanding. It was as if this presence knew me intimately, every thought, every memory, every triumph, and every failure, and yet, there was no judgment. Instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of being seen, truly seen, and unconditionally accepted. The closer I came to the light, the more I realized that it was not merely a place but a state of being. It was alive, conscious, and aware of me. Within the vortex, I began to perceive shapes and forms, though they were unlike anything I had ever encountered. Orbs of light moved purposefully in and out of the portal, each carrying its own unique hue and vibration. Some were small and dim, while others were radiant and expansive, their colors shifting and blending like the notes of a celestial symphony. I sensed that these orbs were not merely lights but beings, each on its own journey, moving through dimensions and realities that were far beyond human comprehension. The sight filled me with awe and curiosity. I felt like a child standing at the edge of an endless ocean, gazing out at its vastness and wondering what lay beyond the horizon. In this moment of wonder, I realized that I was not merely observing the universe, I was a part of it. The boundaries that once defined me seemed to dissolve, replaced by a profound sense of unity with all that existed. I was no longer separate but intricately connected to the fabric of creation itself. As I moved closer to the light, I became aware of another phenomenon. Memories began to surface, not in a linear sequence but all at once, like a tapestry unfurling before me. These were not just memories from my current life but glimpses of something much older, deeper, and more expansive. I saw moments of kindness, of love, and of connection, as well as times of pain, fear, and regret. Each memory carried with it a profound sense of meaning, as though every action and decision had contributed to a larger, cosmic story. And then came the review. It wasn't a judgment in the traditional sense but a revelation of truth. I saw my life as though through the eyes of the divine. Every thought, word, and deed laid bare. I felt the joy I had brought to others and the pain I had caused, not as abstract concepts but as tangible experiences. The love I had given was reflected back to me, magnified and pure, while the moments of selfishness and harm I had inflicted carried an equally intense weight. The emotions were overwhelming: joy, sorrow, regret, and gratitude all blended together in a symphony of understanding. I realized that every action, no matter how small, rippled outward, touching lives in ways I had never imagined. The interconnectedness of all things became undeniable, and with it came a profound sense of responsibility. It wasn't about punishment or reward but about recognizing the impact of my choices and striving to live in alignment with the greater harmony of the universe. In the midst of this review, I felt the presence of another being, distinct yet intricately connected to the light. This being radiated a love so pure and all-encompassing that it brought me to my knees in reverence. It was not an entity bound by form or identity but a manifestation of divine compassion and wisdom. Though it did not speak in words, its presence communicated directly to my soul, filling me with a sense of peace and clarity. This being extended its light toward me, and as it touched me, I felt the weight of my regrets begin to lift. "You are forgiven," it conveyed, not as a decree but as a truth that resonated through every fiber of my being. The forgiveness was not conditional or transactional but an expression of unconditional love. In that moment, I understood that forgiveness was not just an act of grace but a reflection of the fundamental nature of the universe, love so vast and boundless that it encompassed all of existence. The being then shared a message, one that echoed in the deepest recesses of my soul. "You are part of the whole," it conveyed. "Your life is a thread in the tapestry of creation, woven with purpose and intention. Every choice you make contributes to the beauty and strength of the whole. Live with love, with kindness, and with the awareness that you are never alone." With this message, I felt a surge of understanding, as though the mysteries of the universe had been laid bare before me. I saw the interconnectedness of all things, the way every action and thought rippled through the fabric of creation. It was not a hierarchy but a symphony, with each being playing its unique role in the harmony of existence. And yet, even as I reveled in this understanding, I felt a pull, a reminder of the life I had left behind. I could sense my body far below, fragile and broken, waiting for my return. The choice was mine: to remain in this realm of light and love or to return to the physical world and continue the journey I had begun. The being of light did not pressure me but simply stood beside me, its presence a source of strength and guidance. After a moment of reflection, I made my decision, with a deep sense of gratitude and a renewed sense of purpose. I turned back toward the physical world, carrying with me the lessons of this extraordinary encounter. The light began to fade, and I felt myself descending, drawn back toward my earthly body and the life that awaited me. The journey was far from over, it was only just beginning. As I descended, I became acutely aware of my physical body once more. The closer I approached it, the more I felt the limitations and heaviness of its form. It was as if I were being drawn back into a house that had been abandoned, cold, dark, and lifeless. The warmth and light of the realm I was leaving felt like a distant memory. Yet its presence lingered in my soul, a spark of something eternal that could not be extinguished. Re-entry was not instantaneous. It felt deliberate, almost like sliding back into a tight-fitting suit. I approached my body from above, hovering momentarily as if to steel myself for the journey ahead. The first sensation was one of discomfort, a stark contrast to the freedom and expansiveness I had just experienced. My limbs felt foreign, stiff, and heavy. My chest ached, and my breath came in shallow gasps. For a moment, I hesitated, wondering if I had made the right choice in returning. But then, I remembered the light, the being's message of forgiveness, interconnectedness, and purpose filled my mind. "You are part of the whole," it had said. Those words were a lifeline, grounding me in the understanding that my life, no matter how flawed or difficult, had meaning. With that reassurance, I pushed forward, reuniting with my physical form. The process was jarring. As I re-entered, I felt a series of sensations that could only be described as recalibrations. My consciousness moved through my body in stages, activating systems and reconnecting pathways. I started with my heart, willing it to beat steadily. Then came my lungs, coaxing air into their constricted chambers. My arms and legs were last, sluggish and unresponsive at first, but eventually, they began to stir. As I regained control, my senses returned, though they felt muted compared to the clarity I had experienced outside my body. The smell of blood and gasoline filled the air, and I could hear distant voices, muffled, frantic, and urgent. Opening my eyes took effort. But when I did, the world appeared dim and hazy, a stark contrast to the vibrant brilliance of the light. Yet, despite the pain and confusion, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. I was alive. The sound of approaching footsteps broke through my daze. A man, likely a first responder, appeared at my side. His face was pale, his expression a mix of relief and disbelief. "You're alive," he murmured, almost to himself. His words anchored me, confirming what I already knew but couldn't fully comprehend. I wanted to tell him about the light, the being, the message, but my voice was weak, and the words wouldn't come. Instead, I focused on the present moment. I could feel his hand gripping mine, steadying me as others worked to extract me from the wreckage. The pain was excruciating, but it was also a reminder that I was still here, still part of the physical world. As they loaded me onto a stretcher and into an ambulance, I closed my eyes, letting the hum of the engine and the rhythmic beeping of medical monitors lull me into a fragile sense of calm. The journey to the hospital was surreal. Flashes of the light and the being's words replayed in my mind. Mingling with the chaos of the present, I felt torn between two worlds, one of divine clarity and peace, the other of earthly struggle and imperfection. Yet, I knew they were not separate but intertwined. My task now was to bring what I had learned in the light into this world, to live in a way that honored the truths I had seen. The hospital was a blur of activity. Doctors and nurses surrounded me, their movements precise and efficient. Machines beeped, voices barked commands, and lights flickered overhead. I drifted in and out of consciousness, my body too weak to fully engage with what was happening. Yet, through it all, I felt the presence of the light, a quiet but persistent reminder that I was not alone. Over the next several days, I underwent multiple surgeries to address the injuries I had sustained in the accident. The physical pain was immense, but it was the emotional and spiritual weight that truly challenged me. I had returned with a purpose, but what that purpose was and how I was to fulfill it remained unclear. The light had shown me a glimpse of something profound, but now it was up to me to integrate that knowledge into my daily life. Recovery was slow and grueling. Each day was a test of patience and resilience as I relearned basic tasks like sitting up, standing, and walking. The nurses and therapists became my lifeline, their kindness and encouragement reminding me of the interconnectedness I had experienced in the light. Every small victory, a step, a breath, a smile, felt like a step closer to understanding my place in the tapestry of existence. As my body healed, my mind turned increasingly toward the lessons I had brought back. The life review I had experienced in the light weighed heavily on me. I saw the patterns of selfishness, fear, and avoidance that had shaped so many of my decisions. But instead of succumbing to guilt or despair, I felt a deep determination to change. The being's forgiveness had shown me that redemption was always possible, that every moment offered a chance to choose differently. One evening, as I lay in my hospital bed, I closed my eyes and tried to reconnect with the light. I focused on the warmth and love I had felt, letting it fill me once more. Though the experience was not as vivid as before, I felt a spark of that divine presence, a quiet reassurance that I was on the right path. I whispered a prayer of gratitude, not for surviving, but for the opportunity to grow, to learn, and to serve. It was during one of these moments of reflection that a nurse entered my room. She had been caring for me since my arrival, her gentle demeanor and steady hands a source of comfort. This time, however, she paused at the door, her expression hesitant. "You've been through something extraordinary, haven't you?" she asked softly. I nodded, unsure of how to put my experience into words. She stepped closer, pulling up a chair beside my bed. "I don't know why, but I feel like I'm supposed to tell you this," she continued. "You have a light about you. Something that goes beyond the physical. Whatever you've been through, it's changed you." Her words brought tears to my eyes. For the first time, I felt seen, not just as a patient but as someone on a journey of transformation. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew that my experience was not meant to be kept to myself. It was a gift, one that came with the responsibility to share it with others and to live in alignment with the truths I had been shown. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't known since the accident. The light was still with me, not as a distant memory but as an ever-present guide. My body was still healing, my path still unfolding, but I was no longer afraid. I understood that I was part of something far greater than myself, a thread in the infinite tapestry of creation. And for the first time, I felt ready to embrace whatever came next. Stepping out of the rehabilitation center was both liberating and daunting. I was eager to reclaim my life but knew it would never be the same. The accident, the light, and the lessons I had learned had reshaped my understanding of existence in ways I couldn't fully articulate. The world around me appeared both familiar and foreign, as if I were seeing it for the first time through a new lens. Colors seemed more vibrant, sounds more resonant, and even the mundane details of life carried a profound significance. In the days that followed, I began the process of reintegration, relearning how to navigate daily life while carrying the weight of my experience. Simple tasks, like walking to the store or preparing a meal, became opportunities for reflection. I found myself pausing often, struck by the beauty of small moments, the way sunlight filtered through the leaves of a tree, the laughter of a child in the distance, or the comforting rhythm of rain against the window. These details, once overlooked, now felt like gifts, reminders of the interconnectedness and wonder of life. My family, though relieved to have me home, struggled to understand the depth of what I had been through. They listened patiently as I tried to explain the light, the being, and the overwhelming sense of love and unity I had experienced. But words were often insufficient, and I could see the confusion in their eyes as I spoke. It wasn't their fault. How could they truly grasp something so ineffable? Still, their support never wavered, and their presence reminded me of the importance of connection and shared humanity. One evening, as I sat with my mother on the porch, she asked a question that had been weighing on her mind. "Do you think you were chosen for this experience?" she asked. Her voice hesitant. "Why you?" I had asked myself the same question countless times. Why me? Why had I been granted this glimpse of the divine while others went through life without such clarity? I didn't have a definitive answer, but I shared what I felt in my heart. "I don't think it's about being chosen," I said. "I think it's about being open. Maybe we all have moments when the light tries to reach us, but we're too caught up in our own struggles to notice." The accident forced me to stop, to let go, and in that stillness, I found the light. Her expression softened, and she nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense," she said. "Maybe the light is always there, waiting for us to see it." Her words stayed with me, offering a new perspective on my experience. Perhaps the light wasn't a one-time event but a constant presence, accessible to anyone willing to look for it. This realization gave me a renewed sense of purpose, to help others recognize the light within themselves and the world around them. It wouldn't be easy, but I felt ready to try. As part of my journey, I began volunteering at a local community center, drawn by the opportunity to connect with people from all walks of life. The center served as a hub for various programs, meal distributions for the homeless, after-school tutoring for children, and support groups for those facing challenges. It was a place where compassion and humanity flourished, and I felt a deep resonance with its mission. During my time there, I met individuals whose stories humbled and inspired me. There was Maria, a single mother working 3 jobs to provide for her children, who still found time to volunteer and mentor others. There was James, a recovering addict who had turned his pain into purpose, dedicating his life to helping others find their way out of darkness. And there was Ella, an elderly woman who had lost everything in a fire but radiated a quiet strength and kindness that touched everyone she met. These encounters reminded me of the interconnectedness I had felt in the light. Each person's struggles and triumphs were threads in the same tapestry, woven together to create a larger story of resilience, hope, and love. I realized that my role was not to fix or save anyone but to walk alongside them, to listen, and to share the light I had been given. One particularly poignant moment came during a support group session for individuals coping with loss. A man named Peter shared his story of losing his wife to cancer, his voice trembling as he described the emptiness he felt without her. As he spoke, I felt a deep resonance with his pain, remembering the sorrow I had carried during my life review. When it was my turn to speak, I shared a part of my experience, focusing on the message of forgiveness and interconnectedness. The light showed me that we're never truly alone, I said, my voice steady despite the emotions welling up inside me. Even in our darkest moments, we're connected to something greater than ourselves, something that holds us and carries us through. Your love for your wife, and hers for you, that connection doesn't end. It's part of the fabric of existence, and it will always be with you. Peter's eyes filled with tears, and he nodded, his expression a mix of sorrow and gratitude. After the session, he approached me and thanked me for sharing. You gave me something I didn't think I could feel again, he said quietly. Hope. Moments like these reaffirmed the importance of my journey. Each conversation, each act of kindness, felt like a small ripple in the vast ocean of humanity, a way of honoring the truths I had seen in the light. It wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic transformations, it was about being present, authentic, and willing to share the light in whatever ways I could. Yet, there were still challenges. The physical scars from the accident served as constant reminders of the fragility of life. And there were days when the weight of my experience felt overwhelming. The life review, while illuminating, had also revealed painful truths about myself. And the process of forgiveness, both of others and of myself, was ongoing. There were moments of doubt, when the enormity of my purpose felt too great to bear, and I questioned whether I was truly capable of living up to the light's message. In those moments, I returned to the lessons I had learned during my recovery, to take one step at a time, to focus on the present, and to trust in the interconnectedness of all things. The light had shown me that even the smallest actions could have profound impacts. And this perspective gave me the strength to keep going. Whether it was sharing a smile with a stranger, offering a listening ear, or simply being kind to myself, I knew that every choice mattered. As the weeks turned into months, I began to notice a subtle but significant shift within myself. I was more patient, more compassionate, and more attuned to the beauty and complexity of the world around me. The light was no longer just a memory, it was a living presence, a guide that shaped the way I moved through life. And while the path ahead remained uncertain, I felt a quiet confidence that I was exactly where I needed to be. The journey was far from over. Each day brought new challenges and opportunities to grow, to learn, and to share the light. But I was no longer afraid. The light had shown me that life, in all its messiness and imperfection, was a gift, a chance to connect, to create, and to contribute to the greater whole. And for that, I was endlessly grateful. As the seasons shifted from summer into autumn, I found myself embracing the rhythms of daily life with renewed purpose. The world outside mirrored the changes within me, trees shedding their leaves in a brilliant display of color, skies shifting between soft grays and radiant golds, the crispness of the air carrying a sense of both closure and renewal. Each day was an invitation to reflect, to act, and to grow, and I found myself leaning into the unknown with a sense of quiet determination. My work at the community center continued to be a source of inspiration and grounding. One afternoon, while preparing meals for the weekly food distribution, I struck up a conversation with an elderly man named Victor. He had been volunteering at the center for decades, his weathered hands moving deftly as he chopped vegetables and arranged plates. Despite his age, Victor exuded a vibrancy that seemed to radiate from within, a light that reminded me of the being I had encountered during my near-death experience. As we worked side by side, Victor began to share stories from his life, his years as a teacher, the loss of his wife, and the joy he found in mentoring young people at the center. His words were unhurried, each story imbued with a sense of reflection and gratitude. "The secret to a good life," he said, pausing to wipe his hands on his apron, "isn't in avoiding pain or chasing happiness. It's in finding meaning, even in the hard times. Especially in the hard times." His words resonated deeply. My journey since the accident had been marked by both pain and revelation, and I was beginning to see how the two were intertwined. The light had shown me the beauty of existence, but it had also revealed the weight of my actions, the ways in which I had fallen short. Yet, through it all, there was meaning, a thread of purpose that connected every experience, every choice, every moment. That evening, as I walked home from the center, I reflected on Victor's wisdom. The light had given me a glimpse of something eternal, but it was up to me to bring that understanding into the here and now. How could I honor the interconnectedness I had seen? How could I live in a way that contributed to the greater whole? These questions became a guiding force, shaping the way I approached my relationships, my work, and my inner life. I began to notice a shift in how I related to others. Conversations became more intentional, filled with genuine curiosity and a desire to understand. I listened more and spoke less, finding joy in the act of simply being present. Whether it was a neighbor sharing their worries, a colleague discussing their dreams, or a stranger recounting a small triumph, I felt a deep connection to their stories. Each interaction was a reminder that we are all threads in the same tapestry, woven together by shared experiences and collective humanity. This shift extended to my relationship with myself. The life review I had experienced in the light had illuminated not only my shortcomings but also my potential for growth. I began to approach my own imperfections with the same compassion I sought to offer others. Instead of dwelling on past mistakes, I focused on learning from them, on using them as stepping stones toward a more intentional and meaningful life. One of the most profound lessons I carried from the light was the importance of forgiveness. It wasn't just about releasing anger or resentment, it was about creating space for healing, for connection, for love. I found myself revisiting old wounds, both those inflicted by others and those I had inflicted upon myself. Through journaling, meditation, and heartfelt conversations, I began to let go of the burdens I had carried for so long. With each act of forgiveness, I felt a little lighter, a little freer. The light also inspired me to explore new ways of giving back. In addition to my work at the community center, I began volunteering at a hospice, drawn by the opportunity to offer comfort and presence to those nearing the end of their journeys. These experiences were both humbling and enriching. Sitting with someone in their final moments, holding their hand, and simply bearing witness to their life was a profound reminder of the fragility and beauty of existence. One patient, a woman named Clara, left a particularly deep impression on me. She was in her late 70s, her body frail but her spirit luminous. During our visits, she would share stories from her life, her travels, her family, her love of painting, and I would listen, captivated by the richness of her experiences. One afternoon, as we sat by the window watching the autumn leaves fall, Clara turned to me and said, "You have a light about you. My dear, don't ever let it go out." Her words brought tears to my eyes. I thought of the light I had seen during my near-death experience, the being who had shown me forgiveness and unity. That light wasn't just something I had witnessed, it was something I carried within me. A reminder of the divine connection that underpins all of existence. Clara's words were a call to honor that connection, to live in a way that allowed the light to shine through me. As the months passed, I found myself drawn to creative expression as a way of processing and sharing my experience. I began painting, something I hadn't done since childhood, and discovered that it was a powerful outlet for the emotions and insights that words couldn't fully capture. My paintings were abstract, filled with vibrant colors and swirling patterns that reflected the light and movement I had seen in the vortex. Each piece felt like a dialogue with the divine, a way of bringing the ineffable into form. I also started writing, not just for myself but for others. I began crafting essays and stories inspired by my near-death experience, sharing them with friends, family, and eventually a wider audience. The response was humbling. People reached out to tell me how my words had touched them, how they had found comfort, hope, or a new perspective. These connections reinforced my belief in the power of storytelling, in its ability to bridge divides and illuminate the shared truths of our humanity. Through these creative endeavors, I discovered a new dimension to my purpose. It wasn't just about living the lessons I had learned, it was about sharing them. About creating spaces for others to explore their own connections to the light. Whether through a painting, a conversation, or a simple act of kindness, I realized that I could be a conduit for the love and unity I had experienced, helping others to see the light within themselves and the world around them. The journey was far from easy. There were days when doubt crept in, when the weight of my purpose felt overwhelming, when the scars of the accident reminded me of my fragility. But in those moments, I returned to the light, to the memory of its warmth, its forgiveness, its boundless love. It was a wellspring of strength, a beacon that guided me through the darkness. And so, I continued forward, step by step, moment by moment, carrying the light with me. Each day was a new beginning, a chance to live with intention, to love deeply, and to contribute to the greater whole. The journey was ongoing, but I embraced it with an open heart, knowing that the light was always there, within and around me, guiding me toward the infinite. As winter approached, I found myself increasingly drawn to the ways in which the light revealed itself in the lives of others. The interconnectedness I had witnessed during my near-death experience wasn't confined to moments of extraordinary clarity. It was present in the mundane, the everyday acts of kindness, resilience, and love that defined humanity. This realization deepened my sense of purpose, compelling me to seek out and celebrate the light wherever I found it. One of the most transformative experiences during this period came through my work at the hospice. Clara, the woman who had encouraged me to embrace the light within myself, had passed peacefully, leaving behind a legacy of warmth and wisdom that continued to inspire me. Her parting words echoed in my mind as I spent time with other patients, many of whom were grappling with fear, regret, or the unknown. One afternoon, I sat with a man named Harold, whose terminal illness had left him bedridden and withdrawn. He rarely spoke, his gaze fixed on the ceiling as if searching for answers in the patterns of the paint. I tried to engage him in conversation, sharing stories and observations, but his responses were monosyllabic, his voice barely audible. Still, I persisted, sensing that beneath his silence lay a wealth of untold stories. Finally, one day, as I sat beside him reading aloud from a book of poetry, Harold spoke. His voice was stronger than I had expected, tinged with both sadness and wonder. "Do you think there's something after this?" he asked, his eyes meeting mine for the first time. The question hung in the air between us, heavy with the weight of his uncertainty. I took a deep breath, recalling the light and the being who had guided me through my near-death experience. "I do," I said gently. "I've seen it, something beautiful. Something beyond anything we can imagine. It's not the end, Harold. It's a continuation, a return to something infinite and whole." His expression softened, and a single tear slid down his cheek. "I hope you're right," he murmured. "I'd like to see my wife again." In that moment, I felt the profound privilege of being able to share the light with someone in need. It wasn't about providing answers or erasing his fear. It was about offering a glimmer of hope, a reminder that he was not alone. As I held his hand, I felt a quiet connection between us, a thread of shared humanity that transcended the boundaries of life and death. These encounters became a cornerstone of my journey, reinforcing the truth that the light wasn't something reserved for extraordinary moments or divine revelations. It was woven into the fabric of everyday life, manifesting in the relationships we nurtured, the kindness we extended, and the courage we found in the face of adversity. My role, as I saw it, was not to possess the light but to reflect it, to be a mirror through which others could see their own brilliance. This perspective carried over into my work at the community center, where I began to focus more intentionally on mentorship. One of the young people I mentored was a teenager named Marcus, who had recently lost his father and was struggling to navigate his grief. Marcus was bright and curious, but his pain often manifested as anger and withdrawal, making it difficult for him to connect with others. During one of our sessions, Marcus confided in me about his feelings of hopelessness. "It's like everything good is gone," he said, his voice breaking. "What's the point of trying when it just hurts so much?" His words brought back memories of my own moments of despair, times when the weight of life felt unbearable. I leaned forward, meeting his gaze. "I know it's hard, Marcus," I said, "but pain isn't the end of the story. It's a chapter, not the whole book, and even in the darkest times, there's light, you just have to be willing to look for it." He was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. "Maybe," he said softly. Over the weeks that followed, I watched Marcus begin to open up, his walls slowly coming down as he allowed himself to reconnect with the world around him. He started volunteering at the center, helping with the after-school program for younger kids. One afternoon, I found him sitting with a group of children, teaching them how to build model airplanes. The joy on his face was unmistakable, and in that moment, I saw the light within him shining brightly. These experiences reaffirmed my belief that the light wasn't something I had exclusive access to, it was within everyone, waiting to be recognized and nurtured. My journey wasn't about imposing my truth on others but about creating spaces where they could discover their own. Whether through a conversation, a shared moment of laughter, or a simple act of kindness, I sought to cultivate connections that brought the light to the surface. Yet, even as I found meaning in these connections, I continued to wrestle with my own challenges. The scars from the accident, both physical and emotional, were a constant reminder of my mortality and fragility. There were days when the weight of my purpose felt overwhelming, when doubt crept in and threatened to obscure the light. During these times, I turned to the practices that had sustained me throughout my recovery: journaling, meditation, and creative expression. Painting, in particular, became a sanctuary for my soul. Each stroke of the brush was a meditation, a way of channeling the ineffable into form. My canvases were filled with swirling colors and patterns that reflected the light and movement I had seen in the vortex. Through this process, I found a sense of peace and clarity, a way of reconnecting with the truths I had experienced during my near-death experience. One evening, as I worked on a particularly vibrant piece, I felt a sudden and overwhelming sense of gratitude. The light, the being, the journey, all of it had brought me to this moment, where I could create, connect, and contribute in ways I had never imagined. It wasn't about perfection or achieving some grand purpose, it was about showing up, day after day, with an open heart and a willingness to be present. As the painting neared completion, I stepped back to take it in. The colors seemed to dance across the canvas, alive with energy and movement. It was a reflection of the light I had seen, but also of the light I now carried within me, a reminder that even in the midst of uncertainty and struggle, there was beauty, connection, and hope. The journey was far from over. Each day brought new challenges and opportunities to grow, to learn, and to share the light. But I embraced it with a quiet confidence, knowing that the light was always there, within and around me, guiding me toward the infinite. And in that knowledge, I found peace. Winter faded into spring, and with it came a renewed sense of vitality. The earth, once dormant, began to bloom again, mirroring the transformation I felt within myself. My life had become a delicate balance of giving and receiving, of sharing the light I had seen while continually seeking it in the world around me. The interconnectedness of existence was no longer just a concept, it was a lived experience. A constant reminder that every action, no matter how small, had the potential to ripple outward in ways I could never predict. My work at the hospice continued to deepen my understanding of life's fragility and beauty. Each patient I met brought their own story, their own struggles and triumphs. I began to see these stories as threads in a larger tapestry, each one adding to the richness and complexity of the whole. Sitting with those nearing the end of their journeys, I often thought about the light and the being who had told me that we are all part of something greater. It was a truth I carried with me, one that guided my interactions and helped me navigate even the most difficult moments. One such moment came when I met a woman named Margaret. She was in her late 60s, her body ravaged by cancer, but her spirit remained vibrant and strong. Margaret had a sharp wit and a love for storytelling, and our conversations often felt like glimpses into a life well lived. Yet, beneath her humor, there was a quiet sadness, a fear of leaving behind unfinished business. One afternoon, as we sat together in her room, Margaret confided in me. "I've lived a good life," she said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "But there's so much I still wanted to do. People I wanted to mend fences with. Dreams I didn't chase. I can't help but wonder if I've done enough." Her words resonated deeply. I thought about my own life review, the moments of regret and missed opportunities that had surfaced in the presence of the light. But I also remembered the being's message of forgiveness and the understanding that every experience, no matter how flawed, was part of the greater whole. "You've done more than you realize," I told her gently. "Your stories, your kindness, they've touched lives in ways you may never fully know. And even the things you feel you've left undone, there's still time to let go." To find peace, the light doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for authenticity, for love, for the courage to keep trying. Margaret's eyes glistened with tears, and she reached for my hand. "Thank you," she said simply. "That means more than you know." In the days that followed, Margaret seemed lighter, her humor sharper and her laughter more frequent. She began reaching out to old friends and family members, initiating conversations that brought both closure and healing. Watching her embrace these final moments with such grace and courage was a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the power of the light to guide us, even in the face of uncertainty. Meanwhile, my work at the community center continued to evolve. Marcus, the teenager I had mentored, had blossomed into a leader, his once guarded demeanor replaced by a quiet confidence. He had taken on a mentorship role himself, guiding younger kids and inspiring them with his story of resilience. Watching him grow was one of the most rewarding experiences of my journey, a testament to the ripple effects of compassion and connection. Inspired by Marcus and others like him, I began developing workshops focused on storytelling and self-expression. The workshops provided a space for people to share their experiences, to explore their emotions, and to connect with one another on a deeper level. Each session was a revelation, filled with moments of vulnerability, courage, and unexpected insights. I saw the light in every story, every shared memory, every tear and laugh. It was a reminder that the divine wasn't something distant or separate, it was embedded in our humanity. In the messy, beautiful act of living, one evening, after a particularly moving workshop, I sat alone in the empty community center, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The accident, the light, the being, it had all felt so overwhelming at the time. A singular event that had reshaped my existence. But now I saw it as part of a larger narrative, one that was still unfolding. The light hadn't just changed me, it had connected me to others in ways I could never have anticipated, creating a web of relationships and experiences that enriched my life in profound ways. As I sat there, the words of the being came back to me. "You're part of the whole." It was a truth I had come to understand more deeply with each passing day. My journey wasn't just about me, it was about the connections I forged, the lives I touched, and the ways in which I allowed the light to shine through me. And while I didn't have all the answers, I felt a quiet confidence that I was on the right path. The next day, I decided to revisit the place where the accident had occurred. It was the first time I had returned since that fateful day. And as I stood on the side of the road, I felt a mix of emotions, gratitude, sadness, and a sense of closure. The wreckage was long gone, replaced by the quiet hum of life moving forward. But the memory of that moment, of the light and the being who had guided me, was as vivid as ever. I knelt down and placed a small bouquet of flowers at the site, a gesture of gratitude for the journey that had begun there. As I stood up, A sense of peace washed over me. The light wasn't just a memory, it was a part of me. A part of everything, and it would continue to guide me, no matter where the journey led. Walking away from the site, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. There was still so much to learn, to experience, to share. The light had shown me that life wasn't about perfection or certainty, it was about connection. About being fully present in the moments that make up our days. And as I moved forward, I carried that truth with me. A beacon of hope and love in a world that needed it more than ever. Spring turned into summer, and life continued to unfold in its unpredictable yet beautiful way. The lessons from the light, once overwhelming and difficult to process, had become an integral part of who I was. They were no longer just insights from a singular experience. They were guiding principles that shaped my actions, relationships, and perspective on the world. Every day felt like an opportunity to embody those lessons, to share the light I had seen and help others discover it within themselves. My work at the hospice and community center had given me a profound appreciation for the resilience of the human spirit. I had witnessed people face their darkest moments with courage and grace, often finding strength they didn't know they possessed. These experiences reinforced my belief that the light wasn't something external or distant, it was within each of us, waiting to be acknowledged and nurtured. One of the most impactful moments of the summer came during a storytelling workshop at the community center. A young woman named Layla shared her story of growing up in foster care, enduring years of neglect and instability before finding a sense of belonging in a chosen family. Her voice trembled as she spoke, but her words carried a raw authenticity that moved everyone in the room. When she finished, there was a moment of silence before the room erupted in applause. Tears streamed down Layla's face as she looked around, seeing the support and admiration in the eyes of her peers. It was a powerful reminder of the healing potential of vulnerability, of the connections that form when we share our truths without fear. After the session, Layla approached me. "Thank you for creating this space," she said. "I've never felt safe enough to share my story before. It feels like a weight has been lifted." Her words stayed with me, a testament to the importance of fostering spaces where people could be seen, heard, and valued. It wasn't about offering solutions or fixing their problems. It was about creating an environment where they could find their own strength, their own light. As I continued to reflect on these experiences, I felt a growing pull to expand my reach. The light had shown me that we are all connected, and I wanted to find new ways to bridge divides and bring people together. With the encouragement of my friends and family, I began hosting larger community events, bringing together people from different backgrounds to share their stories and celebrate their common humanity. One such event was a day-long retreat focused on creativity and connection, held in a local park. It featured workshops, performances, and group activities designed to inspire and unite. Watching people of all ages and walks of life come together to paint, dance, and share stories was deeply fulfilling. The energy of the day was palpable, a vibrant testament to the power of community and collective expression. That evening, as I helped clean up, I sat for a moment under a tree, taking in the lingering sounds of laughter and music. The stars began to emerge in the sky, their light soft but steady, a reminder of the vastness of existence and the interconnectedness of all things. I closed my eyes and allowed myself to simply be, to feel the presence of the light within and around me. In these quiet moments, I often felt closest to the being I had encountered during my near-death experience. Though I no longer saw or heard them in the same way, their essence remained a part of me, a quiet guide that shaped my thoughts and actions. I didn't need their physical presence to feel connected to their message. It was written in the fabric of existence, in the light that illuminated every corner of life. As summer waned, I decided to revisit one of my earliest passions, writing. Inspired by the workshops and events I had been organizing, I began drafting a book that combined my own experiences with the stories of others I had encountered along the way. It was a labor of love, a way to weave together the threads of connection, resilience, and hope that had defined my journey. Writing the book was both cathartic and challenging. Reliving my near-death experience and the life review brought up emotions I thought I had fully processed. But it also deepened my understanding of those moments, allowing me to see them in new ways. The process reminded me that healing wasn't linear, it was a continuous journey. One that required patience, courage, and a willingness to confront the shadows. As the pages filled, I began to see the book as more than just a collection of stories. It was a reflection of the light itself. A way to share its message with a broader audience. I didn't know how it would be received or if it would even find its way into the world. But that uncertainty didn't bother me. The act of creating, of channeling the light into something tangible, was enough. When autumn arrived, I held a small gathering to share excerpts from the book with friends and community members. The evening was intimate and filled with warmth. The room aglow with candlelight as I read passages and invited others to share their thoughts. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and several people encouraged me to publish the book. Their support gave me the confidence to take the next step, and I began exploring ways to bring the project to life. Amidst these creative pursuits, I continued to nurture the relationships that had become so central to my journey. My family, once confused by my experience, had grown to embrace the changes they saw in me. We shared more honest conversations, more moments of connection, and I felt a deeper bond with them than ever before. My friendships, too, had deepened, as I surrounded myself with people who inspired and supported me. Through it all, I remained mindful of the being's message: to live with authenticity, to love without reservation, and to honor the interconnectedness of all things. It wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. Each day brought new opportunities to learn, to grow, and to share the light, and I embraced them with an open heart. As I looked ahead to the coming months and years, I felt a quiet excitement for what lay ahead. The light had shown me that life was an infinite journey, one that didn't end with death or even with the boundaries of the physical world. It was a continuous unfolding, a dance of creation and connection that transcended time and space. And so, I moved forward, not with certainty, but with faith, faith in the light, in the love that binds us, and in the limitless possibilities of the journey to come. As the year approached its end, I found myself reflecting on the path that had brought me here. The journey from my near-death experience to this moment had been anything but linear. Filled with challenges, revelations, and a constant interplay of light and shadow. Yet, through it all, the lessons I had learned and the connections I had forged had shaped me in ways I could never have anticipated. It was as though the light had woven itself into the fabric of my being, guiding me toward a deeper understanding of existence and my place within it. One of the most significant moments of the year came when I finally completed my book. Holding the finished manuscript in my hands, I felt a mix of emotions: pride, gratitude, and a sense of humility. The book wasn't just my story, it was a tapestry of experiences, lessons, and insights from countless others who had crossed my path. It was a reflection of the light we all carry, a reminder of the interconnectedness that defines our shared humanity. The process of publishing the book was a journey in itself. I faced moments of doubt, wondering if my words would resonate with others or if the message I sought to convey would be understood. But each time doubt crept in, I returned to the memory of the light, to the being who had shown me that our stories matter, not because they are perfect, but because they are true. With that conviction, I moved forward, trusting that the book would find its way to those who needed it most. In the weeks leading up to its release, I organized a series of events to share the book's message with the community. These gatherings became a celebration of connection, a space where people could come together to explore their own experiences and find solace in the stories of others. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with many attendees expressing gratitude for the opportunity to engage in such meaningful conversations. One evening, after a particularly moving event, an elderly woman named Anna approached me. Her eyes sparkled with tears as she took my hand and said, "Your words reminded me of something I'd almost forgotten, that I'm not alone. Even in the hardest moments. Thank you for bringing that light back into my life." Her words encapsulated everything I hoped to achieve with the book and my work. It wasn't about answers or solutions, it was about creating spaces for connection, for healing, for remembering the light that exists within each of us. It was a reminder that our lives, no matter how ordinary they may seem, are part of something extraordinary. As the book began to reach a wider audience, I received letters and messages from readers across the country and even around the world. They shared their own stories of loss, resilience, and transformation, often describing how the book had helped them see their experiences in a new light. Each message was a testament to the power of storytelling, to the way our shared humanity can bridge even the widest divides. Amidst these external successes, I remained committed to my inner journey. The lessons from the light were not static truths but living principles that required constant reflection and practice. I continued to meditate, to create, to engage in acts of service, and to nurture the relationships that brought meaning to my life. Each day was an opportunity to live with intention, to honor the interconnectedness I had seen and felt during my near-death experience. One of the most profound realizations I carried with me was the understanding that the light wasn't something external or separate, it was a part of all of us. A reflection of the divine within and around us. This understanding transformed the way I saw the world, infusing even the most mundane moments with a sense of wonder and reverence. Whether I was watching a sunset, sharing a meal with friends, or simply walking through the park, I felt the presence of the light, a quiet reminder of the infinite beauty that surrounds us. As the first copies of my book arrived from the publisher, I held one in my hands and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Not because the book was an endpoint, far from it, but because it represented a milestone in a journey that was still unfolding. It was a tangible expression of the lessons I had learned, a way to share the light with others and invite them to explore their own connections to the divine. The book's release was accompanied by a sense of closure, but it was also a beginning. The journey I had embarked on after my near-death experience was far from over. And I knew that the light would continue to guide me in ways I couldn't yet imagine. Life was an infinite journey, a dance of creation and connection that transcended time and space, and I was grateful to be a part of it. As the year drew to a close, I gathered with friends, family, and members of the community to celebrate the journey so far. We shared stories, laughter, and moments of quiet reflection, each of us carrying our own unique light. Looking around the room, I felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the experiences I had lived but for the connections I had forged, the lessons I had learned, and the opportunities to share those lessons with others. In that moment, I was reminded of the being's words, "You're part of the whole." It was a truth that had carried me through my darkest moments and illuminated my brightest ones. It was a truth that connected us all, weaving our lives into a tapestry of love, resilience, and infinite possibility. And so, as the clock struck midnight and a new year began, I embraced the unknown with an open heart. The journey was far from over, but I was ready to face whatever came next, guided by the light and grounded in the knowledge that we are all part of something greater. Together, we are the light, and together, we create the infinite.